Digital tools, human performance, and the continuum of modern musicianship. A Continuum Music School essay. Digital learning tools have become an essential dimension of contemporary musical education, not as a fashionable addition, but as a practical means of widening access and deepening possibility. They enable distance learning across geographies, time zones, and economic circumstances, allowing a student in a remote location to work with a teacher, a score, a drone, or a carefully prepared exercise, without the barriers of travel or institutional proximity. In this sense, they serve an egalitarian purpose. The same high-quality resources, demonstrations, and interactive environments can reach learners who would otherwise remain outside traditional systems of musical transmission. Continuum pedagogy recognizes this capacity and incorporates digital tools as part of its living architecture, using them to support practice, refine listening, and maintain continuity of relationship between teacher and student, even when physical presence is impossible. Yet within Continuum, the hierarchy remains clear. Digital tools exist to enhance performance. The human factor stands at the summit of the pyramid of excellence. Software, platforms, and computational systems can illuminate intonation, record subtle variations of tone, generate reference pitches, visualize contour, or allow a player to revisit a phrase with forensic attention. They can free the learner from isolation and provide scaffolds that make complex material more approachable. What they cannot do is supply the irreplaceable presence of a particular body, a particular breath, a particular history of listening and living that shapes every note. Performance remains the place where musicianship is realized, tested, and offered. The tool is subordinate to the player who uses it. Algorithms and artificial intelligence belong to the same broad digital continuum that has long shaped electronic and experimental music. Decades of creative work with synthesizers, samplers, sequencers, and digital audio workstations have already demonstrated how computation can expand the palette of sound and structure. Contemporary AI systems are a further development of that lineage, rather than a sudden rupture. For musicians whose physical circumstances prevent conventional instrumental technique, those living with motor impairments, chronic pain, or other disabilities that limit traditional playing, AI and adaptive interfaces can open genuine pathways into music making that would otherwise remain closed. In such cases, the technology functions as an enabling extension, restoring agency rather than diminishing it. The limitations, however, are equally evident when the goal is creative depth and personal expression. Generic AI systems, trained on vast aggregates of existing material, tend towards statistical averages and recognizable patterns. They can generate competent pastiche, useful sketches, or efficient solutions to technical problems, yet they struggle to embody the idiosyncrasies that make a performance human. The slight hesitations, the private associations, the accumulated physical memory, the particular way one player leans into a phrase because of how their hands, ears, and history interact. Continuum holds that these idiosyncrasies are not defects to be smoothed away, but the very substance of musical personality. A performance that relies heavily on the player's own peculiarities of timing, color, and intention cannot be adequately substituted by systems that optimize for probability rather than presence. Continuum is oriented toward the present and the emerging future. The past supplies the ground from which we have come, the accumulated techniques, instruments, and listening traditions that still nourish us, but it is not the destination. The pedagogy is determined to remain at the cutting edge of modern musicianship, which means treating computation in all its forms as part of the toolkit available to human musicians, rather than as a replacement for them. Digital environments, adaptive algorithms, and intelligent systems will continue to evolve. Continuum's commitment is to integrate them in ways that enlarge human capacity without displacing human center. The aim is never to become a passenger in someone else's process, whether that process is another person's or a machine's. The aim is creativity itself, the active shaping of sound by a living player who remains responsible for the choices made and the meanings that arise. Ultimately, Continuum affirms the power of performing music to heal and elevate the one who plays. Music practiced and offered with attention becomes a means of regulating the nervous system, of reclaiming agency, of experiencing coherence between body, breath, and sound. This transformative potential belongs to the human act of performance. Digital tools can support the conditions in which that act becomes more accessible, more informed, and more sustainable across distance and difference. They cannot supply the act itself. When the hierarchy is held clearly, tools in service of the player, computation in service of creativity, technology in service of presence, digital resources strengthen rather than dilute the continuum of living musicianship. The result is a pedagogy that remains open to every useful contemporary means, while keeping the human performer, with all their idiosyncrasies and all their capacity for meaning, at the center of the work. From the book, The Continuum Approach to Music, Foundations, a Pedagogical Framework for Musical Learning by Sarnia de la Maré FRSA.